Okay.
Now let's get the show on the road. Assessing the state of the Nigerian nation for some. For some, there may be much to cheer about, while for others, the Nigeria of their dream is still a work in progress. From the economy to security, infrastructure to energy, power to politics, and the electioneering process itself, the general perception is that Nigeria, the giant of Africa, is still in a slumber. Awakening Nigeria would, in the view of many, take a lot more than wishes and rhetoric. It would need deft, political, conscious, and deliberate efforts by our leaders. You know, all those excuses of blaming the previous governments.
Our signature.
All those things now are safely tucked away in the past. We are living today. What is our nation like today? What kind of leaders do we have today? Are they leading us in the right direction? In fact, are they leading us in any direction? Because we always speak on this program about what is Nigeria's vision? Where do our leaders intend to take us? They never really tell us, do they?
By which vehicle?
Well, it's my pleasure to welcome two professors. One of them is with us in Lagos, Professor Taiwo Ojo, and he's a professor of leadership and strategy, and we are expecting Professor Ikechukwu to join us in the course of this segment. Good morning, Professor.
Good morning, Ayo. Good morning, Alero. Thanks for having me.
Good to see you again.
You know,
always a pleasure.
Let me start with that transformational part of our conversation. And you know, Alero just talked about, first thing she talked about was, look, where are we? Because when we talk about leadership, automatically creates the illusion of a followership, right? Is that what we have?
You know, thank you once again for having me. You know, leadership transcends across cultures. So our own culture in Africa is more of a particular, a king-servant type.
Even in a democracy?
In a democracy.
Even in our democracy?
Yes, it's like a king-servant type.
Wow.
Everyone, you know, during the course of the week.
We've missed the plot, haven't we?
Yeah. During the course of the week, IBB launched his book, you know, My Journey to Service. You know, I've been reading the book, so I think I was on 200 page, the number 200. And
already,
there's something I love about him. You know, we've been saying it over and over again in Africa, put something down. Development started in Africa, but there was no documentation. We have so many professors in Africa. They are not authors. I'm not talking about academic journals. Author. If you want to do well in Western culture, in the Anglo, US, Canada, France, you must be an author. I know publishing books very costly, but you must be an author, not academics. Because there are people focused on the academics and the title. Because when you put your story in a book, it's like you are defining legacy. You might not know what will eventually happen, maybe when you are gone. So why we encourage our leaders to put their story together, because leadership is like what the U.S. former Secretary of State Henry Kissinger, before he died, he released his last book. And the title of that book was 6-word strategies. You know, it was talking about the axis of leadership, how people just got into leadership positions and they became overwhelmed. And he released those 6 strategies. I will just go through them one by one. You could choose any leader that fit into that. You know, he said the first strategy was the strategy of humility. If you come down to Africa, you want to talk about any of our leaders that had that strategy, because I want to bring the practical here. Maybe Goodluck Jonathan. Strategy of humility, but people turn it to weakness. It's a very good strategy. Another one that he talked about was the strategy of will. He was talking about Richard Nixon, you know, during the challenges in the U.S. in the 70s, how he was calm despite the Nixon gate and so many issues that happened. He also spoke about the strategy of transcendence. We all know the Middle East, Egypt, our Sadat. You know, he paid that huge price for peace between Israel and Egypt. And you see what is happening today. That issue has been lingering for the last 70 years. And someone comes in and says, I want to take over Gaza, I want to do this thing. People are condemning. He said, I don't want to make it lingering. I want to resolve it, because the essence of leadership is to solve problems, not to continue. So, I heard us talking about the bullet train, fast-speed train, and my joy, because it's a good news. There's so many bad news now. It's a good news because when you have someone that is leading you that is a business-oriented, sometimes you might say his interest is given to people. Nigeria, we do so many things. But the most important thing is, do that train from Lagos to Abuja, it will change a whole lot of things. Our flight that will go to Abuja paying 600,000, all those things will automatically go down. What did America do? Well, America is still the #1 country in the world today, despite so many things that is against them. They put a lot of investment in infrastructure.
Doc, there's a question I'd like you to answer. Because when I talked about, the first question I asked was about a leader-follower system. And you said what we have is a king-servant thing. So do we have a transition period? The reason I'm asking is, over the years, so many people have said the same thing, that we don't have that culture of leader-follower. We have that kind of boss, subordinate, king, servant, and all those other things. But it's taking us 25 odd years now 26. In this Fourth Republic. And here we are still talking about the challenge of a leader-follower system. What would you say is the delay? Because I don't see transformation happening without that.
Like you said, what is our leadership development recruitment process? During the Abacha years, who were in the university then, and when he passed on, the civil rights activists, most of them, they went abroad and they called them to come and do politics. Most of them said, no, they are not interested. So we left politics for the lowest of us. The moment you left politics for the lowest of you, before you get that power, it's like you are going into the mouth of a lion. You have to kill someone. So we gave political positions. Political positions define everything you have. Your businesses, every billionaire that you see in Nigeria is one government policy or the other. It's about, let me give something to my people. So it's a cultural thing. But we gave that space to those, the least among us. And you are expecting something. People that do not even appreciate intellect. Anything I operate in that field, people do not pay for intellect. The same thing, they do not want to pay for medical services. Lawyers are the smartest. They are very, because they're lawyers, they have a way out they can collect their money. But three major professions, the academics, the medical, and the lawyers. It's only lawyers that was able to probably get something. But the medicals and the academics, intellectual works are intangible. They are not things that you can hold. But our culture, we like material. We want to hold on to something. And there's a lot of differences, about the leaders, followers. Our emphasis is so much on one president, one man. Every problem in Nigeria is the president. We don't look at our governors. We do not look at the commissioners. We do not look at the local government chairman. We do not look at the councillors. We focus on Abuja. Maybe because of our structure, I don't really know, but I know things will change because of the young people that are coming. They don't have patience. They don't have patience. They want to get things done on their own time. So we believe that the issue of vision, so many things, all those things are coming because, like you said, sir, we are 25 years into democracy. We are making progress. Sometimes we are coming back. But it's the communication gap. The communication gap is a major bane between leaders and followers. The trust level is low.
Well, we'll come to the communication gap, but there's something you mentioned earlier when you talked about General Babangida's book, when you talk about government giving some things to the people. I remember at that book launch what Alhaji Dangote said, that it was the Babangida government that activated the private sector.
Liberalization.
And even the president made the same comment when he said that he called some of them into Dorton barracks and liberalized the banking sector and the rest of it. So if we had that kind of system at the time, one of the challenges that I've always raised on this question is that of sustainability.
Yeah.
You talked about transcendence the other time. We don't seem to have that culture.
Yeah.
So that the moment one government comes in, it truncates what the previous government has been doing. Interestingly, there are those who would also reference that in the Abacha years, what's that dollar?
The exchange rate was stable.
The exchange rate was stable.
Yeah. Yes, 22 naira.
So, please, what have we missed over the years? Because if the Babangida government could be getting the kind of praise it was getting 2 days back from a good number of people that spoke, despite all the things that we have heard about, you know, the Babangida government, and even right now, things that are going on Twitter. What do you think is the challenge here?
You know, you said it, sustainability. You know, in the UK...
But shouldn't we have a system that insists?
You know, is this system? We have the system. You know, we have the system. The greatest problem is the consequence. If you bring Canadian to come and live in Africa, they will behave like us. They are human beings. If you bring Americans to come and live, we are globalists, we've been everywhere. If you bring Americans to come and live in Africa, they will behave like us. If you bring British, they will behave like... If you take our people to go and live there, they will behave well. Because there is what we call consequentialism. If you do something wrong, you are punished or you are fined. So there's a tendency for you not to repeat it because you know there's a way you will be punished. If you do something in America, 30 years, they have laws, they will get you. So what we are saying is, can we get biometrics? The first part to creating a new nation, you know, how to know everyone is to get biometrics. And I'm glad that there's a progress. NIN, all those is a very good thing. If you can finish it off with population, we know the number of people in Nigeria. We are now up to 220 million. That 220 million is based on ESA. Someone wants to collect what is not working for. Our population, as I'm talking to you, is now up to 160 million. If they do the real biometrics, you know, biometrics is you alone. And they tie it to your children. You can't escape. And that's the way you solve a lot of problems. But because our tendency is to look for a way to mago to cheat the system. Reaping where you have not sown is a cultural problem and it's an attitudinal issue. You see, NOA, they are doing what they are supposed to do, but there's a gap. There's a trust deficit. People in government, I've told you, when you give the poorest in your class to lead you, they control your life. You might be brilliant, but they are your leader. They are your political leaders because politics is tied to economy. If your politics is good, the economy is good. In the Western nation, in the UK, in the US, they have one grand vision. Any political party that comes, you follow the vision. And that's one thing about Lagos State. Look at the state that are doing well in Nigeria. You might not like the people that are in position, all those things are sentimental. The current president, you know, during the election, we started, we said, like, this man will win. They said, no, I don't talk politics because people, emotions, you know. This guy has been tested. In leadership, you have to be tested. And if you pass, a bigger platform will be given to you. This guy was in Lagos. We all know how Lagos was. He created the system, the tax system, all those things are working. Was it not last week that he said Lagos hit a $1 trillion tax, I don't know, achievement, LIRS. It was a decision by someone to make things work. That was over 20 years ago. That is why you see him as the president. And if you want to do well in Nigeria, I take you back to Lee Kwayo. You know, his own strategy in that Henry Kissinger book is the strategy of excellence. Excellence is one of the biggest problem that we have in this culture. Mediocrity is a way of life. When you want to do the things right, people want to cut corner and frustrate you.
Perhaps it is the challenge, sorry, Alero, the issue Alero raised the other time, that we always talk about vision. Every time we talk about leadership on this program, we talk about vision. And Alero is asking the same question. If we don't have a national vision, then everyone, when Alero is in government, it is Alero's vision. Alero leaves, Taiwo comes in, it's Taiwo's vision. So when are we going to have a Nigerian vision?
I believe we are getting there. Based on what we've heard and based on the work we do as a strategist, we are getting there. It's just that sometimes you get your vision when things are not working well. You get your vision when things are not working well. You do not get vision when you are living large. You get visions during pain.
You get vision when you are in problem.
When you are in challenges.
We are in pain now.
And of course, Nigeria has been in pain because we refuse to face the truth. You know, a typical Nigerian, they live fake lives. Our normal behavior. You just live, your normal life is not what you are living. Either to impress people, either to deceive yourself, either to just follow religious...
Why would anybody want to deceive himself?
No, that's our normal way. You know, Nigerians is not a leadership problem, really. It's a followership problem. Whether from home, whether we do things everywhere.
What we were talking about at the beginning.
Is a followership problem.
It is us. It is we, the people.
You know, I told you, bring America to Nigeria, they will behave like us. Take Nigerians to America, they will behave like them. Because there's consequence. There are no consequences in Africa. It's not only Nigeria. You go to South Africa, you see the same thing. You go to Kenya, you go to Ghana, you go to Caribbeans. The same pattern. The same pattern. The pattern of self. Only you. Because we are very good individually as a people. Collectively, we are wretched. We do not collaborate together as people from sub-Saharan African culture. And we've done research, and it's the same thing. In one of my books, is there, Ubuntu Leadership. It's the same thing. We do things individually, doing well. Everybody is making money.
But together,
collectively,
zero.
Zero. And if you don't do things collectively, you can't develop. And it takes us back to the government. Everyone looks at the president.
Yeah.
You forget your own in your little space. On the road, all those things. You know, the traffic on the road is not caused by government.
It's not caused
by the attitude.
You know, one of the things that I find interesting in what you said, Alero, you're coming up next. When you're in the evenings, weekdays,
yes, sir.
Traveling from Otedola Bridge, what we call Otedola Bridge, towards Berger bus stop.
Yeah.
Horrendous traffic.
It's blocked.
And when you get to the bus stop,
there's nothing to see.
Buses parking on the road.
Yeah.
And we have a government. We have local governments.
Yeah.
We have traffic officers. Federal, state, and local. Anyway, Alero, you were saying something.
Yes. Let's go back to what you were talking about, what Kissinger...
Okay, the Henry Kissinger, yeah.
Yes. So we have a leadership now.
Yes.
How would you classify, in what cage or are you going to put them?
Among our present leadership. Let me start from Obasanjo because we're talking democracy, so that we are neutral. Okay. You know, the six world strategy that he wrote that book, and 2 weeks after he passed on. Wow. He left the scene. That was in November 2022. I got the book, I was in the US. Like I said, strategy of humility, strategy of transcendence, strategy of will. Strategy of will, like Charles de Gaulle, you know, doing it after Second World. Strategy of equilibrium, which is Richard Nixon. Strategy of excellence, Lee Kuan Yew. That's what this present government is following. You have to be like a dictator to make change.
Wow.
And one leader that did it well, but the greatest regrets, is the father of my friend, is the sustainability. And I know Baba is not happy. Obasanjo is not happy. Because if he had sustained it, from that 2007 to date, Nigeria could have gone.
How
he did well. He had that strategy of excellence. Because you have to be a dictator to make changes possible. Look at the Middle East.
How can you be a dictator in a democracy?
What is the meaning of democracy? Who creates it?
Government of the people, by the people.
No, those are just normal slang.
Are you saying that Nigerians are ungovernable? So they need a strong
Nigeria is a very complex system. Everybody with different motives. You do not know what is going on in people's mind. If you write a book, people will condemn you. If you do God, they will do it. It's our nature, no problem. If that strategy of excellence that Lee Kuan Yew did is one of the strategy, and the last one is the strategy. Let me list it again: humility, strategy of will, strategy of equilibrium, strategy of excellence, strategy of transcendence, which is the and the strategy of conviction, the Margaret Thatcher style. You know, when it came to the conviction. If I want to compare the present leadership in Nigeria, is the conviction and the excellence. Because when the president came and said strategy and subsidy is gone, that statement was not written down. I hope you know. It was from a God sense.
No, I think there is still that a misunderstanding, in my opinion, of that. Here's what I mean. Before that government, this government came into power, Mr. Babatunde Raji Fashola, as minister, said in the budget for year 2023,
no provision for strategy.
No provision for
strategy.
Subsidy beyond June
2023.
It was already something that the government of the day, before this government came into power, already said. In my opinion, I just feel that the president just said, look, based on what, in fact, in that paragraph, which wasn't written down, said, look, the government, the exiting government has already done this. Yeah. So he just said, therefore, subsidy is gone.
That statement that he made is the communication. That statement that he made is what is changing everybody's life now. We are elites.
What has changed?
We are elites. We travel a lot. You know, ticket price is very expensive. Everybody has, you know. This is the first time in a very long time in Nigeria history. I think some of us I'm close to 50, so at least we've seen some things. Elites, because elites break or every nation, you know, and Nigerians elite have problems. I'm one of them. You are one of them.
I don't know what you're talking about.
You are one of them. Nigerians elite. This is the first time they are adjusting, you know, because the thing is eating them. I know, you know, like I said, pain is one of the things. It's during pain that you craft vision.
Anyway, I hope Professor Ikechukwu agrees with you. He joins us in Abuja studio, as I mentioned the other time. Professor Ikechukwu, Executive Director, Development Specs Academy. He's also Professor of Strategic Management and Human Capital Development. Thanks for joining us this morning, Prof. So here we are. We've been talking about, I'm sure you've been listening to us for quite a bit, perhaps even on your way. So we're trying to get, the conversation is about transformational leaders for national development. And so the first question that I asked Professor Ojo here is, when we talk about leaders, it automatically connotes the image of followers. And Professor Ojo here is saying, we don't really have as much a leadership problem as we have a followership problem. Do you agree with him?
That statement is open to argument.
I expected that, Prof. So go ahead.
So let's not mystify. Let's break it down as simply as possible. I am a father. All of us here are parents. If you have disorder in any of our homes, obviously parenting will be the issue. So let's keep it very simple. In any environment where there are human beings and there are activities and there are resources, relating with each other is one, managing the resources is another. To do both, you need direction, you need values, you need enforcement. In the absence of leadership, instead of a group, you have a crowd. Instead of a team, you have a band of, if you like, marauders. So my submission on the matter is that, yes, there's some element of, if you like, culpability for a bad environment with reference to the followership, but the substantive issue is this. In all human history, in every environment, even in the animal kingdom, once there is an entity that's clearly a direction-giving entity, sometimes with some measure of enforcement, there will be order. So to that extent, I suggest and insist that it would appear to me that leadership is more a fundamental issue than that of followership. And we have even our own historical experience to deal with. We saw Murtala, the president, he said. We saw the war against indiscipline, how all of a sudden everybody was struggling to be of good behavior. We saw P2B in Anambra State and a lot of things that came under control. We saw Jakonde, we saw Ajashi. So if we expect that in any circumstance, the leader who is presumed to be more enlightened than the followers would depend on the followers for direction, we are getting it wrong. But then somebody can point out that, look, Prof, listen, the people are asking for the wrong things. They want me to give them money, they are asking for contracts and all of that. So what do you expect me to do? What I expect you to do is to act like a leader, which is give direction. Ask yourself what they are asking for. If you start it and everybody does this, can you still have a society? The answer is no. if one of your children in the house or two of them are particular about having some things in their favor against their siblings, and you encourage that, can you have a home? Will you be a responsible father? So there's some measure of, if you like, moderated nastiness in leadership. And that is interpreted in terms of give the people what they need, not what they want. That's why you're their leader.
Okay, Prof. Yeah, the leader gives direction, but the people choose to go in another direction. Consider the issue of fake drugs in Nigeria, killing people, disorderliness on the roads, all that confusion in our lives. It is not the leaders who are doing all that, it is us. And we've already spoken this morning about some prices are coming down, but the effect of that come down is not reaching the people because we, the people, have decided to profiteer on fellow people.
It's actually the fault of the people, of the leader. Let me re-emphasize the submission.
Okay.
It's the fault of the leader. Now, okay, here in Abuja you have traffic lights, you're in Lagos you have traffic lights. Part of leadership is the structures for public administration, for value enforcement, for containment of possible excesses. If, for instance, you go to London, I'm sure we're familiar with this, when the Hurricane Katrina occurred in the US, looting took place, cannibalism resumed. There was a power outage, I think, in one of the most highly respected cities in Europe. People came out to loot. They didn't come from Lagos, they didn't come from Onitsha, they didn't come from Kano streets. It's the same people who have been behaving well under, quote unquote, good leadership. And that's for the simple reason that the structures and institutions of state make misconduct unattractive. So if there's traffic light, I violate it and nobody gives me a ticket, nobody stops me, and the person who stops me collects money from me, and I, as leader, do not pay attention to recruitment and enforcement, the collapse of the environment cannot be blamed on the followers. It is enforcement which makes rules, first of all, fair rules, second, enforcement, third, impartial enforcement. That now bring confidence and trust to bear on the state. But even in the most organized environments with strict and known rules, the desire for misconduct will always be there.
Prof, just a quick
when you
one.
now begin to allow it,
my sincere apologies.
Begins to degenerate.
Prof, just a second. Is it simplistic of me to expect that Nigerians will behave? I mean, I said...
behave?
Yes, I mean, we just behave like good, normal people. The street light is there for our own safety. I mean, the traffic light is there for our own safety. We know that.
Yes.
So what is it simple? Am I oversimplifying it to say that okay?
No, on the contrary, you're correct actually. You're not oversimplifying, but look see where the problem comes from. The traffic lights are there and we're supposed to obey the traffic light. Everybody, you and I who are big men do not obey the traffic light. We are setting the right, quote unquote, right example for misconduct. So you find that when the reflexes of leadership is disruptive, does not follow rule of law, does not indicate that we take these things seriously, followers will also follow. It is that simple. Because assuming we're talking about a country on another planet, this is the same Nigeria where people behave well. The same Nigeria where if light was to go out when we were growing up, there will be an announcement that there will be power outage by the ECN, Electricity Corporation of Nigeria, for about 1 hour. So the issue of the traffic light now, place that against the fact that you're in traffic, a local government chairman, I didn't say the president, a local government chairman comes with a convoy, chases everybody out of the way, and goes. The governor does the same, the senator does the same, the House of Reps member who comes visiting in the state does the same. And I ask, what standard are we setting? Who are we mentoring? That's unconscious mentoring. If I'm in office, let's say I'm a senator, I come in from Abuja, I want to go to the village and say hello to my mother, and I go in a convoy of 4 vehicles, or 5, I'm sitting in one of them, there's a pilot in front, there's security detail at the back, and maybe, if you like, in some cases, an ambulance. And I'm doing 150 or 120 on a village road, untarred, a lot of dust, killing people's goats, with all my headlights on in the afternoon. And this is not a case of somebody with temporary insanity. No, he's a leader. And so our children are watching And a lot of them are saying, I want to be like that man.
Yes.
My brothers and sisters, that is how we've created the followership we're complaining about.
But you know, so another thing in that regard,
becomes unattractive when big men do and women do not display it.
Another thing in that regard,
so for me,
because essentially what you're saying is we automatically create the next set of leaders from the
by our behavior, yes.
By our behaviors.
Oh, certainly.
Okay, so
certainly.
Is there a way to moderate that? But you can answer that question in this controversial context. There is something that General Babangida called accident of history on Thursday while he was during his book launch. And he said that that action was deeply regrettable. And that if he had another opportunity, he would do it differently. There are probably a number of people in leadership today who have done the same thing and have deeply regretted. But how do we communicate that regret in a way that the next set of followers will not do the same?
I think the first thing is we are all human and we can make mistakes. The decision to annul June 12 for me was unfortunate. But you see, that's why as a leader, you shouldn't always just be talking policy and the ideal. You must understand your operating environment. In every political situation, there are political forces, there are economic forces. Those determine the political economy of the environment. At the time Buhari Abiola won that election, there were people who didn't want him to be president of Nigeria. And you can understand that. Look, let's operate with a sense of history. You remember when he also ran into problem in traffic with some soldiers, he was pushed out, and he gave a very loud media, outcry. Why should they be behaving like that? Babangida should tell us who voted for him. I'm sure we've forgotten all of that. Now, you find that he also, at the time that election, the controversy was on, he left for the US. Kingibe was his deputy. Now, that's your vice president. You didn't know, he didn't know you had left for the US. You didn't brief him. And then, Kingibe raised the issues. People asked him, oh, it appears you didn't tell your deputy. He said, oh, he gave a Yoruba proverb. He said that, he's a very robust and cheerful personality. He said, oh, that in his place, they say that a bird does not tell another bird that a stone is coming. That was the most unfortunate thing anybody could have said. That's one. Yes, we all witnessed it. Second, the Oni of Ife. The Oni of Ife came out and addressed us on national television after visiting President Babangida and said, yes, they can now understand what happened. They can understand. Have we forgotten all of that? It's only the Oni of Katsina. He's a Yoruba man, presumably the leader of the Yoruba nation. Now, the political economy of the environment at the time was that there were too many forces. There were some powerful forces who overruled the true will of Nigerians. Now that happens. Now that can happen. You may find yourself in a leadership situation where even though you have the title, the configuration of forces around you force your hand in a certain direction, sometimes on pain of death. If you remember, Omo Moriyi's book narrated all of this. Abacha actually was one who was in strong contact with the dominant political forces in the country, and they didn't want Abiola. Now, that's a few people saying that what you and I think, the fact that we forgot that it was a Muslim ticket, they forgot that we were excited that this man will give us the Nigeria we want. It didn't matter to them
at all.
And they forced a decision. The elections were clear. Humphrey, also the chairman of the election body, got himself nearly killed because he was trying to insist. And so I will understand what is called sometimes the circumstance or twist of history on the hand of history. But I'll take it further to also say that sometimes that's also the time to say, here I am, so that others will say, there you are. Now, three factors. The decision was wrong, but subsequently it was mismanaged. Such that an election result that attracted jubilation all over the country, in less than 3 weeks, it became a southern project. How did that happen? That's what we are not asking us. How come the North, within a short time, withdrew completely from it? That the northern candidate lost to Abiola in his own place, in his own home. what happened. We're not thinking about it. So those are the things to consider so that we don't remain extremely idealistic without a sense of history in all of this. You must also consider Abiola's reflexes. That's what you call power politics. His reflexes, were they reassuring? He was going to be the president of the most populous country in Africa. He hadn't been sworn in, and he was talking reparation and threatening America. Have we all forgotten that? Global diplomacy watches out for the type of people they allow to head big nations. Yeah. Reparation, a lot had been done to Africa. This amount will have to be paid to Nigeria. Oh, really? So let's not kid ourselves.
But that's what happened with Libya, Prof. That's what happened under Gaddafi. I mean, he was that kind of leader that wasn't wanted by the West, so to speak. And of course, we all know, what happened. At the end of the day, isn't it supposed to be about the people in that particular country as opposed to the influences from outside? Perhaps the challenge is what Professor Ojo raised here about what some other people have called the elite consensus. Because if there was that, would it matter what anyone from outside of the country wanted?
No. It would matter because the elite consensus you're talking about, if we are the elite here, our consensus could be with those who are oppressing our country, who are interested in our solid minerals. There's a consensus, for instance, in the mining and misuse of solid minerals in the north. Outsiders are involved, Nigerians are involved. So consensus in itself delivers nothing, except you find out those who are the team in the consensus and what they are striving towards. Let's take a simple example. We say that democracy, that's the easiest definition, which to a very large extent doesn't make a lot of sense to me. But we say it's government of the people, for the people, and by the people. I agree. But many of those who make this, who give this definition, do not also bother to define the people. Take any of the political parties, for instance, APC, PDP, Labour Party. It is for the people. But when you look at the requirements for getting nomination paper, one party, it is 100 million, just to get a piece of paper to say I want to contest. In another party, it's 15 million. In another, it's 30. Is it still government of the people? My answer is yes. Which people? Government of the people who can pay because they have a lot of money. For the people who support them and who will therefore get contracts when they become president or governor, and by the people who are part of this grand elite conspiracy.
Exactly.
Once we don't do this analysis, we'll be prancing all over the place, talking about, oh, they've denied us our mandate. The people, the governors, those we elected don't care about us. Yes. Please, they paid you up front. If I paid you 10,000 to vote for me, you collected the 10,000 and then voted for me and beat up those who were not ready to vote for me. What has happened is that I've paid you at the rate of 2,005 per annum for 4 years. You dare not call my phone. We finished our transaction.
Prof, have mercy on us. Please have mercy. Have mercy on us. Come on. Alero, go ahead.
Professor, let me take you back a bit to the example you gave earlier about the way our leaders and our big men behave in Nigeria. Seeing as that is how we behave, who is going to tell these leaders and leaders to be that that is not the correct way to lead? You have been in this leadership business for a long time. How much talking are you doing to the political class that even children who are in primary school are watching them and learning from their behavior?
I do that quite often, but let me give an example to reemphasize the point about leadership. I'll use 2 examples. Tinubu when he was governor and Peter Obi when he was governor. Tinubu became governor in a Lagos state that if you went to Akpogbo in the night, you're the one who has chosen to commit suicide. Olobo area. You just notify your ancestors you're coming ahead of your time. That's why you went there by 10 p.m., nothing more. Why are you laughing? I don't understand. So, these boys were totally useless. Some of them will make up to 15,000 back then, and that's a lot of money with which you can pay in advance for a car, a used car. By the next day, they've blown it all on drugs and some loose living and all of that. Now, Tinubu became governor. By some strange reason, those boys were found some things to do. I think Adeni Jadele was involved. They became part of the security of the environment. They are human beings. Left to themselves, they will do all sorts of things to survive. They were put to some use. And all of a sudden, they were enforcers of good behavior in terms of road usage and all of that. Their leaders were brought under control. Now you go to Anambra State. Peter came into a state where for 2 years the schools were closed down because after the politicians had shared the allocation to the state, there was no money to pay teachers. Right. 2 years. Schools were not running in Anambra State under Mbadinuju. He came in, looked around. We are not going to share this money anymore. Schools, in any case, our schools should be doing well. We are known for that. But for them to do well, we need the right people to run them. Who are those who really run schools well? Well, the owners of the schools, mission schools, PTAs. Look, okay, let's just give back these schools to those who owned them before. He did that. He gave the schools back to them. I think one, he had predominantly Catholic and Anglican. I think the Catholics had more schools. They were given 6-point-something billion based on the number of schools properly calculated by him. The other, I think, were given 4.5 billion. So it's not take your school, no, he funded it. And told them, the teachers are now your personnel. If they are coming to work or not coming to work, that is your business. You are interested in good academic performance and morals. That's what our children need. 2 years later, Anambra State was bringing the best results in NECO, in WAEC, and all competitive examinations. What point am I making with that? Going back to your question. Paradigms. Once you set them and enforce them, they stick. Peter came in, every evening a cow is killed in the governor's lodge, and he asked them why. He said, oh, Your Excellency, because of those who will come back with you, a lot of people follow the governor home. That's how we've been doing it. He said, well, my friend, it's only myself and my wife that live in this place. People should go home to their own wives so that they eat the food they cook. This place is not a restaurant. He stopped the killing of cows. Now, that's the sort of thing. And it's not about P2B, it's about others who are doing the same thing. Schools, where the head teachers are doing things like this, enforcing discipline, insisting on seeing lesson notes. Corporate organizations where corners are not being allowed to be caught, among so many other things. Media houses where the organizations insist on balancing the views. Sorry, yeah.
Okay, we have some reactions from home. Festus Akimboyewa says, in President Tinubu's campaign and inaugural speech, he clearly laid out his vision to remove fuel subsidy, float the currency, create credit system, defeat insecurity, improve our economy, solve our electricity problems, give hope, unify and heal our nation. It is a great task, but Nigeria has a visionary leader.
Professor Enakana says, transforming Nigerian leaders for national development requires a shift in mindset, strong institutions, and active citizen engagement. By prioritizing integrity, education, and accountability, Nigeria can produce leaders who genuinely serve the people and drive sustainable progress. Jide Pratt has this one on the same trail. Very interesting conversation. It's really not complex. Consequence management is key. Law must be applied to all. We are just not ready.
Okay. Festus again. Festus is, he's very busy on Sunrise this morning. IBB did not annul the best election in our history. He also drove us down a pretty bumpy road, and we're still trying to navigate our way out of the storm he and his fellow politicians in khaki plunged us into. Blaming a dead Abacha who cannot come back to life to defend himself for the annulment of our best election is a sign of weakness.
Well, Professor Law Alpha C says the ecosystem for our recruitment process is fraught with corruption. If you can pay your way through, you are qualified to control the resources of the state. You call the shots, strangely amass wealth and live with impunity. And Skittish Money says our elite has failed to realize that the masses live by imitation. Imitation of the elites of society. I think that spoke to what Professor Ojo said the other time.
Yes.
Okay, well, Prof, okay, let me quickly come back to you.
Okay,
go ahead.
The point about integrity.
Yes.
Yes. I think one of the speakers spoke about the need for integrity, the things we need to have a better society. You see, without prejudice to the usual views about integrity, responsible leadership, I suspect that most of the time we are so inattentive to the environment that we can be described as delusional. And I'll give an example that appears unrelated to this. The Labour Party says we know they give shishi. I'm sure you're familiar with that expression.
Yes.
Right?
Yes, sir.
The understanding is that, look, we won't give anybody money in order to win election. What that party, in my view, foolishly ignores is that there are circumstances where shishi is mandatory. If you say you're not a wasteful person, I will respect you for it. But if you say in order to save money, you won't buy soap to have your bath, something is wrong with you. When those who should man your facilities are not able to transport themselves there, when you insist on volunteers, forgetting that transport is not shishi, is not bribery, it's necessity, you make it impossible even for those who are loyal to you to remain with you.
It sounds, Prof.
That is part of the crisis of the...
It sounds like consultancy has begun for the next election. Let's hold on to body card and take notes from you. But it makes a world of sense, things that you're saying, Prof. I mean, what is necessary is necessary. We're running out of time, so let me just take your comments here, Prof. We still go back to this. So it sounds like this whole idea of transformational leader or transformational journey of Nigeria, transformational journey of Nigeria's development is a long way away.
Yeah. Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
So
is it a long way away? Let me tie to three words. Prof spoke about needs. There's a difference between needs and wants. When you focus on need, you are a survivor. Most of our politician leaders, they are still on that level. Forget whether they are billionaires, they are still on the lowest level, survivor. But when you focus on wants, you focus on meaning, living a life of impact, doing things that you are not in control of. Today we just talk about Awolowo. Most of our people do not read history. Awolowo had challenges of education. He went to school in England, he wrote to the richest man then for loan, £2,500. It was not granted. He went to the UK, read. Most of our leaders then, they went to school abroad because of the exposure. Came back and they started free education. He turned the personal problem. And personally, when I was in my period, I just said it within myself. I will continue to help so many people to go to school abroad. And I've been privileged to have taken care of over 80 doctoral students across nations, UK, just to help them. I don't really collect money. Because I believe that when that exposure comes, because most of the issues is the problem of the mind, the exposure is not there. So you don't even know what goes on in the developed nation. Okay. So you are in your local cocoon.
You are a local champion.
Sitting down and condemning the people in leadership. Meanwhile, if you get there, you will do worse than what they are doing.
Well, so, Prof, this is part one. Well, Prof, your last comment on this as well.
Sorry, you said? I didn't get you.
You're passing shots on this conversation. Let's just call it part one.
Oh, well, a nation develops under good leadership. Now, in speaking of good leadership, you make a distinction between office holders and leaders.
Oh, wow.
People who are in office, who are holding leadership positions, who have worked out the right values for development, are implementing them and enforcing them and not allowing those who are misbehaving to get away with it, they will lead to development. That's
Thank
the
you
point.
very much.
So when you speak of transformational leaders and leadership, quite frankly, I've noted with some dismay that a lot of our enlightened persons who speak of transformational leadership, number one, they think they are the transformational leaders. Number two, they bring out the qualities of transformational leaders correctly. But they don't take the time to study the environment, identify the obstacles that make transformational leadership impossible, and then design ways of dealing with them. So you find that for decades, they will be going around making long speeches in halls. In an auditorium containing 200 people, you make a fantastic speech, everybody is clapping, you believe you've spoken to the rest of the world. From there, people go to their homes. You are making no impact. Instead of looking for young people to speak with, to train, to give them a new mindset. So this talk up, if you get the best person to lead, and who has no capacity to withstand the economy, the political economy of the forces in the country, he will be swept away. Point I'm making finally is, do something wherever you are. If all of us do something we know to be good, because all of us are leaders, either at home, in school, as class teachers, wherever, you'll have a better society, and it will key into the bigger flow down from a great leader if you have one.
Professor Ikechukwu, Executive Director, Development Specs Academy, and Professor of Strategy Management and Human Capital Development, who joined us from our studio in Abuja, as well as Professor Taiwo Ojo, Professor of Leadership and Strategy, who was with us in our studio in Lagos. Thank you very much, professors. This is just a conversation opener because the issue of transformational leadership or leaders is one that we cannot stop talking about in Nigeria, because we are still looking for leaders who are going to take us to the El Dorado.
That's another city altogether.
Thank you very much. Sunrise will be right back with another interesting conversation. Do stay with us.